Hi, welcome to Petra's Happy Place. Today is our second installment of the pattern highlight. I hope you've had a chance to download or print your pattern that we're going to be working on. It is the Yarnspirations Go-To Crochet Shawl. I've shown you that before. I left a link in the last video that we did here. And what I'm going to do is refocus the camera here in just a few minutes, and we're going to start looking at the pattern together. Here we go. Let's take a look at this pattern here. We have first a color picture. It doesn't make any difference really what color that it could be, in black and white. What we're going to be focusing on is the actual stitch, and it's very difficult to see what the stitch looks like. But when you look at it real close, you can see some kind of a shell stitch going on. That's what we call this, a shell stitch. So when we look down here at the materials, we have this particular pattern. This shawl was made out of the Caron 1 pound soft sage. Okay, and it actually gives you the exact not the measurements, but how much that 1 pound ball weighs. And they're saying you need 1 ball, but that 1 ball is 812 yards. I don't believe we're going to need that much for this particular shawl, but as long as we have 812 yards of a 4-weight yarn, I think we're going to be okay. This is also recommending that you use an I-9 or 5.5 millimeter crochet hook, but it also goes on to say, or size needed to obtain gauge, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, let's start here. The weight that we need is a medium weight, and here we have the abbreviations. Approximate, of course, that's going to be approximately. We have the beginning and CH for chain, DCFP, okay, that's actually double crochet front post. You're going to start seeing some of these over and over again. Like DC is always going to be double crochet, all right? Then we have REP, which means repeat. It even shows you here, it's written out here exactly how to do a double crochet front post. If you need help understanding what a double crochet is, you need to read over that and make sure you know how to do that. This is only telling us where it's going to be positioned, okay? Now we've got round, RND, stands for the round. So if you have a pattern that is going in the round, and I don't believe that this is going to be doing that, but if you had one, that's what you would see, rounds. RS is the right side, and sometimes that is noted and sometimes it is not. Okay, sometimes it doesn't make any difference because it looks the same from the front side or the back side. We have SC, that is always going to mean single crochet. Some patterns will show the SC in small cases and sometimes both large case. This one happens to be large, small. Then we have SLST, stands for slip stitch. SP is for space. ST is stitch. TR is treble crochet. Now sometimes it is listed TR for treble. Sometimes it'll say TC for treble crochet. WS is going to be the wrong side. So obviously right side, wrong side. And yarn over hook, YOH, they're saying is yarn over hook. However, there are some patterns that just say YO. Just yarn over your hook. Okay, this particular shawl is going to measure, when it's completed, as it is written here, 61 inches. So from the triangle, if we have our triangle here, this part is going to be 61 inches, and from point to the straight edge is going to be 30.5 inches. Now, that is going to be important when we decide what our gauge is going to be, okay? Now, the gauge basically is saying that if you work 11 single crochets and 12 rows of those single crochets to complete this pattern as it is written, it should be 4 inches. All right. Here's where I want to explain something to you. In the case of a shawl or some kind of a cowl or things that don't have to have specific measurements, you do not necessarily have to go exactly by the gauge. Some people would prefer a much looser stitch here, in which case you might want to use a much larger hook. So what I've done is I have made 4 swatches to show you the actual stitches. Okay, so the first one here is we have a 5mm swatch. So that means I've used a 5mm hook to make this swatch. It is 11 single crochets this way and 12 high. And I'm going to get my measuring tape and let's take a look and see how big this is. This is a little shy of 3 inches that way and a little bit more than 3 inches this way. Okay, so if you wanted your cowl to be a little bit smaller than what is shown here, use a 5mm hook. Okay, so the next one I've made up here is a 5.5mm hook, and I did this right here. Okay, so let's take a look and see how big this one is. That one is just about 3¼ inches this way, and that's going to be about 3½ inches that way. Now obviously it can stretch a little bit, if you wanted to measure it out, but as you can see, it is slightly bigger than the 5mm sample. Okay, I hope I'm not confusing you too much, but all we're doing is we're trying to understand gauge. When you start working with clothing items, that's going to come in very handy. You're going to need to know the actual gauge. So here I am using the 6mm hook. Okay, there's that. Now we don't really need to, it doesn't need to be completely straight, okay? It can always be blocked later. But let's measure that one. That one, that looks to be about the same size as that other one. But here we got 3 inches by 3½ inches. Okay? Now that might be 3¼ inches. Alright, so that's with the 6mm hook. Now, this is going to be the interesting one here, because this is with the 6.5mm hook. 6.5mm, I believe I did that correctly. And here we have, oops, that's still, well, for some reason it is shrunk. That's just slightly over 3. And that is a little, that's about 3 3/4. So let me go back to this. What did the pattern say that the gauge needed to be? So for 11 single crochets and 12 rows, it was supposed to equal 4 inches. But according to my calculations, not even my 6.5 millimeter hook obtained that gauge. You see that? And we were actually supposed to be using an I 5.5 millimeter. So apparently the yarn I'm using, or maybe the tension I'm using in my crochet hook, is not going to match what they are suggesting. Okay? So this is what I need you to do. This week, you're going to need to work on this gauge, all right? Take some scrap yarn. Make sure it is exactly the same kind and weight of the yarn that you're planning on making this shawl with, okay? And do a couple swatches. Now, this isn't going to be necessary every time you make this particular shawl. We need to do it to establish what you want to use. Now, if you start making your gauge and your tension, and you are able to find out that, hey, you know what? The I hook, the I9 or 5.5 millimeter, works up perfectly for me. That gives me 4 inches. Then if you want to use that one, use that one. But let's say you're making this for a child. All right? Let's say you wanted to make this particular shawl for a child or a small person, like an adult who is just more petite. Well, perhaps you don't want to use such a large hook with that big of a gauge. Perhaps you might want to use a smaller hook, okay, to obtain a smaller swatch, okay, so that would make this entire cowl a little bit smaller. All right? If you have any questions about this, please leave it in the comment section below, all right? Now, what I plan to do is I'm not going to use any of the ones that I've made. See, I have used, these are the hooks that I've tried. See, we have used, this is my 5 millimeter. This is my 5.5 millimeter. This is my 6. And then this one is my 6.5. Now that's the largest one that I made, and even that one did not obtain that gauge. So I plan on jumping all the way up to possibly a 7 or 7.5 hook, because I tend to like my shawls a little bit looser and drapier. I am using, this is the Karen Simply Soft, wait a minute, I'm sorry. It's Soft Essentials. I can't remember, but it's like a Simply Soft yarn. It's a little bit thinner of a yarn. But I intend to make, this I'm using for the examples, okay, the swatches. But I want to use this Delish Boutique, and it is a 3-weight yarn, light, but to me it's kind of thick when you start adding in that halo effect. So I'm going to play around with my gauge and see if I can find something that I like better with this, okay? All right. So remember, gauge is very important when you're talking about items of clothing, or perhaps a hat that you might be making for an adult or a child. You're going to really need to know this. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start with the instructions here. The first thing on our list, it says CH10. So what does this CH mean here? We go back, we find out that it means CH is chain. So we're going to take our yarn and we're going to chain 10. So here's my yarn, Let me find the beginning here. All right, I'm going to just make it as simple as I possibly can. We're going to make a slip knot, like so, and we're just going to chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? Now, the first chain, your chain should not be tight. In fact, it's better to err on the side of very loose. All right? So, what does our next part of the instructions say? We finished this, chain 10. Now it says, join with SL. What is SL? We look up here. It says SL is slip stitch. So we're going to join with a slip stitch to first chain to form a ring. Okay. Are you finding those instructions easy enough to read? So let's get this sample back out here. This is just, I'm just following along the instructions just like you are doing right now, okay? So, I'm going to go to the very first one, and it is right here. And I am going to join with a slip stitch, and we do that by putting our hook into that stitch, drawing up a loop, drawing it through that first one, and drawing it through the second one. And now we have this loop, you see? Okay, let's go back to our directions here. Then it says, see diagram on page 2. All right, well, if you had printed out your directions, oh, look what we have here now. We have a diagram. Now, I want to point something out to you right here. These are the chains that we just did right around here. And if you count all the way around there, you will notice that there are 10 little tiny circles. Okay? So that is what we just did of this diagram. All right, let's go back to the directions here. So here it says, first row. And this is going to be the what? The right side. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 4. And here it says, right here, it counts as a treble throughout. Okay, do you understand what that means? So a chain 4 is a treble crochet. Now look over here. This is our abbreviations, TR, treble crochet. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 4. Then the next one says 7 treble. So we're going to do 7 trebles, chain 1, and then 8 trebles in the ring. All right, so here we go. Get your yarn back out. I need to get some more yarn here. So here's our ring. You see? Now it says chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to count as our very first treble crochet. We're going to yarn over 2 times. That's what we do with the treble, right? We're going to insert into that ring. Don't worry about going into any of those holes. We're just going to do it into that big ring right there. So, yarn over twice, go into the ring, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. That's your treble. So the directions say that I was supposed to do 7 trebles. So that's my first one. My next one, oops, I need to yarn over twice. Draw up, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. Let's do that again. Treble, yarn over twice, put your hook in the center, draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. All right, we're going to do that until we have a total of 8 trebles. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit faster. If you need to slow the video down or stop it, you just go ahead and do that. This is going to be our first, what you call, round. Okay. Okay. This is going to be my last one, and now I'm going to lay this down so you can see. We're going to count these together. All right. And I hope you're able to see through the shadows here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, there's our 8th one. So it says right here, let's go back, that the chain 4 counts as a treble. So there's our first treble, then 7 more, that equals 8. Now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to do 8 more trebles. All right? So here we go. Get some more yarn. And like I said, if you need to stop the video, we're going to chain 1. If you need to stop, that's fine. Oops, here I am doing a double. Now remember, I'm doing this right along with you all. I am reading this and doing this with you for the very first time, okay? So we're learning together. And I'm doing a double again. I'm so used to doing doubles. We need 8 trebles. And if you don't know how to do a treble, stay tuned, and I will eventually, here at the end of this little tutorial, or actually I'll actually put in the description box a link to how to do a treble crochet. All right. So let's look at this again. All right, so here is our first round. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Chain 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 on each side. All right. Well, that looks like we just finished that first row. Look here. First row. That was the right side. You're supposed to do that in the ring and then turn. So the first row is done. How's that? So what I want you to do for next week, we're going to make sure that you've got all these. Make sure you're happy with the tension that you have going on in this particular round, okay? If you think, oh, it's too loose, I don't like that, it's very tricky to do the treble crochet for the first time in in a series like this to get them all the same tension, okay? So don't be afraid to make a mistake. Pull it out, frog it, go back and start doing it again if you feel like you want to make it look a little nicer, okay? Then I want us to look, and you can do this later, but I want you to see on our little diagram. Now this is going to be, you're going to be able to see it better up close than I'm showing in the camera. But you're going to see right here where we chained 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then look here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 extra, so a total of 8 trebles. And we even see how to make those. If you look over here, it says that a treble crochet is a really tall T with 2 little tiny strikes through it. So we did that, and then we chained 1, and here's that chain right there. It's chained right there, and then we did 8 more. There we are. Okay? So, what I'd like you to try to do is see if you can work through the second row this coming week. So work on this first row, then do the second row if you can, if you're having trouble understanding it, because what we're going to be doing is we're growing it. We're growing it out. Can you see this here? This is the first, what we just did right here. And I imagine what we're going to be doing is now doing it. It's going to grow bigger. It's going to grow by 2 or maybe, yeah, it looks like it's going to be 3 the next time. So it's going to be growing here. So I want you to look here, see if you can understand what they're talking about. If something is in parentheses, it is referring to what is right in front of it. Okay? So here the second row, the beginning says chain 7 counts as 1 treble and chain 3 space throughout. Okay? So here it says chain 3. So see if you can work this by yourself and come back and listen. If you think you can handle going through the whole thing by yourself, have at it. You know, it looks like it's just going to be growing out, and it's going to go all the way up to 7 rows, it looks like. And it says repeat rows 6 and 7 until the top edge measures approximately 60 inches. So you could actually keep growing and growing this thing. All right. So actually, let me see here if I'm, yep, that's the way it's done. And keep looking and referring back down to this diagram, because it is actually going to show you, and we're going to start learning what these symbols mean. Because once we can read the stitch key, which is going to be the same in any language, okay? If you can read these stitches here and look here at a pattern, you can find any pattern anywhere, and you should be able to understand how to do this entire thing, okay? That might be a little more to tackle than in the first day. But this is the beginning of our cowl. All right. So if you have any questions about what I said today, or any questions about this particular pattern, please leave it in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to answer those. There you have it. So for next week, I hope that you will take some time to look over the pattern a little bit more closely. I also hope that you have time to work on a couple rows. See if you can figure this out. And please have that paper ready with all of those diagram symbols that we're going to work on, okay? And maybe you can even start writing out this pattern on paper by yourself using your own notes. Feel free to take notes on your actual pattern. If you need to change something, change a gauge, just whatever you need to do to remember for the next time you pick it up, or the next time you decide to make another one of these go-to shawls. Okay, thank you, and you have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.